on 90.
It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Russ Belville with your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
This is your 420 Radio News for Thursday, September 25th, 2014. Attorney General Eric Holder is open to the idea of rescheduling marijuana from the Cannabist. On the brink of giving up his post, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder appears to be more open than ever to talk about the potential rescheduling of marijuana. Marijuana is currently a Schedule I substance in the U.S., along with heroin, LSD, ecstasy, and other substances with, quote, no medical use, end quote, a designation activists have long thought and a serious roadblock for the legal marijuana industry in states that allow the sale of medical or recreational cannabis. And now Holder, who is in the news this morning regarding his recent resignation as Attorney General, is saying that Americans should question themselves using science as a guide on rescheduling marijuana and its shared classification with heroin. Holder told Yahoo Global News anchor Katie Couric, quote, "It's certainly a question we need to ask ourselves whether or not marijuana is as serious a drug as heroin, especially given what we've seen recently with regard to heroin, the progression of people from using opioids to heroin use, the spread and the destruction that heroin has perpetrated all around our country, and to see how, by contrast, what the impact is of marijuana use. Now, it can be destructive if used in certain ways, but the question of whether or not they should be in the same category is something we need to ask ourselves and use science as the basis for making that determination," end quote. Despite governor's objection, Pennsylvania Senate okays medical marijuana bill, from CBS Local, Philadelphia. The Pennsylvania State Senate today voted overwhelmingly in favor of a bill that would legalize medical marijuana in Pennsylvania, but the odds are steep against the measure becoming law in the current legislative session. The Republican-controlled Senate voted 43-7 in favor of medical marijuana. The measure was championed by State Senator Dalen Leach, a suburban Philadelphia Democrat. But one big problem for supporters is Governor Tom Corbett. His spokesman, Jay Pagney, says the governor's position has not changed. Quote, "The governor is opposed to the legalization of marijuana for either purpose, recreational or medicinal," end quote, Pagney said today. Corbett has proposed a limited research pilot program, but even before the bill can get to him, it has to go through the state house, where, with only a handful of days left in the current session, a spokesman for the majority leader says the medical marijuana bill will have to be reviewed and vetted during at least one hearing. A handful of drug delivery methods that do not involve smoking would be permitted under the bill, including extracted oil, edible products, ointments, and tinctures. Medical marijuana support falls in Southwest Florida and statewide, from thenewspress.com. In somewhat of an eye-opener, support for medical marijuana has fallen below the critical 60% threshold, with Southwest Florida even less supportive, according to a new poll. The Survey USA WFLA tracking poll finds that 53% of likely voters support Amendment 2, 32% oppose, and another 15% are undecided. To pass, the initiative needs to top the 60% mark. In Southwest Florida, those numbers drop to 48% in favor, 38% against, and the remainder unsure. It's a far cry from the halcyon days of summer when a Quinnipiac poll found nearly 90% support for the measure. The Survey USA poll marks the worst showing to date for the initiative, and only more data will tell us whether this is an outlier or a trend. Other polls in September show the measure hovering just above or below the critical 60% mark. Despite this bad bit of polling news for backers, the News Press forecast model puts the probability of Amendment 2 passing at 63.9%. Our model, based on all available data, predicts a 61.2% to a 38.8% outcome. Kevin Ward Jr. under the influence of marijuana when killed by Tony Stewart's car, the DA says, from sportingnews.com. Kevin Ward Jr. had enough marijuana in his system to influence his action the night he was killed in a sprint car accident with Tony Stewart, according to the district attorney who handled the case. The 20-year-old Ward was killed when he was struck by Stewart's car during an Empire Super Sprints race, August 9th, at the Canadaguaya Motorsports Park. Ward had gotten out of his car after a wreck, walked onto the track, and was approaching Stewart's car when he was struck and killed. Quote, "There is toxicology evidence in the case relating to Kevin Ward that indicated at the time of operation he was under the influence of marijuana," end quote, said the DA. This has been your 420 Radio News for Thursday, September 25th, 2014. I'm Russ Belville.